Alzheimer's is a disease that causes dementia. Dementia is a neurodegenerative disease that includes the loss of memory and mental abilities that affect daily living. There are many other things that cause dementia. Alzheimer's is just one of them. We will talk about the characteristics of Alzheimer's in a moment, but first let's review the prevalence in our country. Alzheimer's affects mainly people over the age of 65. There's an estimated 5.1 million Americans today that have the disease. The number is expected to grow exponentially to about 15 million around the year 2050. Presently, every 67 seconds, someone develops Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the US and the 5th leading cause of death in patients over the age of 65.
You're probably wondering what causes Alzheimer's disease. Scientists are still unclear as to why it happens. The most widely accepted theory is that Alzheimer's develops due to a variety of genetic mutations. Statistically, most people that possess these mutations will eventually present with the disease. Disease progression is influenced by age of onset, race, gender, and exposure to environmental mutagens. Alzheimer's is a progression of the brain's inability to clear metabolic waste. This leads to a buildup of protein plaques and tangles, inhibiting neuron function, which leads to cell death.
So, what are the signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease? In the early stages, the patient will be independent and able to drive to work or social activities. They may start experiencing expressive aphasia, forgetting familiar words such as holiday or seahorse. They also may have trouble finding the right word or remembering names. In this stage, friends and family may begin to notice the difficulties.
The disease progresses to the middle stage. This is typically the longest stage, and it is marked by increased confusion, anger, or frustration. The patients begin to forget events in their own personal history. They often feel withdrawn, they experience changes in sleep patterns, and may be confused about where they are or what day it is.
Patients presenting with late-stage Alzheimer's will not be able to respond to their environment. For example, a patient may wander off in a storm and not realize it. They lose the ability to carry on conversation as well as exhibiting changes in personality. They will lose physical abilities like getting out of bed, walking, or even swallowing.
The only way to truly diagnose a patient with Alzheimer's is post-mortem, during an autopsy. We can, however, diagnose a patient as having probable or possible Alzheimer's dementia during their life. Possible Alzheimer's dementia has a loose definition, so we only focus on probable. Since Alzheimer's is a dementia-causing condition, the first step is to diagnose the patient with dementia. The patient must meet the criteria for dementia through patient history, mental status scales, or neuropsychological testing. If the patient meets the criteria for dementia, we can now test to see if he or she meets the criteria for probable Alzheimer's. The symptoms must have a gradual onset, clear-cut history of worsening, and the initial cognitive deficits have either a amnestic presentation, like inability to remember recently learned information, or non-amnestic presentation, like impaired judgment. The symptoms must not be caused by other neurological diseases or injury. Other clinical tests like lab testing or imaging can be performed, but their purpose is to rule out other causes of dementia.
Sadly, there is no cure for Alzheimer's disease. Patients are expected to survive 3 to 8 years after diagnosis. Alzheimer's disease is at the forefront of medical research today and is important because of the increasing cost of care for these patients. $226 billion are being spent in our nation to care for patients with dementia just in 2015.